we are going to be making fresh breadcrumbs. Not the breadcrumbs that you buy in the store in the can, but actual fresh homemade breadcrumbs. I'm going to start off by showing you the bread that we are going to work with today. We are working with 2 hamburger patty buns. You can pretty much use any type of bread that you would like. Today we are actually using hamburger buns. So I have had my two burger patties. I went ahead and tore them in half. I'm going to go ahead and lay them out on a baking sheet lined with a liner. You're going to go ahead and throw these in the oven for about, a couple minutes at 300 degrees. And the reason for doing this is to dry that bread out and get it nice and kind of crispy before you're going to go ahead and tear it up and put it in either a food processor or a blender. Today we are using a blender. I have previously already toasted these bread pieces, so I'm going to go ahead and show you the next step after these bread pieces come out of the oven. You're just going to go ahead and tear it apart a little bit with your hands first, just to break it up and make it a little bit smaller before you're putting them into the blender. And again, your teacher might have you use a food processor. Today this is a blender that we're using. I'm going to go ahead and show you the different settings here on a blender. There is a spot where you can adjust the speed, okay, a timer, a pulse setting, and a crushed ice setting. Today we're going to go ahead and use the pulse setting. That makes for a nice and small pieces of bread, that are going to come out from this. Make sure that it's plugged in. And I'm going to go ahead and put the power on and start it. Just kind of eye it, watch it so that the breadcrumbs, get nice and small so that they can, absorb all that flavor when you are mixing it around in your bowl. If you see that this is getting kind of high and the bread is really traveling up the blender, just start with 2 pieces at a time, and then I'll do the next 2 after this is finished. You gotta shake it around a little bit, move that bread around. Okay, and if you have to kind of stop it once or twice and kind of like mix it around, that's okay. And once you see that your bread pieces have turned into crumbs, like so, you are ready to move on to the next step. Okay, we're back. It's time to add some flavor to our breadcrumbs. We are making Italian breadcrumbs. I have taken the bread that I just ground up in our food processor or our blender, and I put it into a mixing bowl. And it's time to add a couple of our ingredients. The first 2 things I'm going to add are our oil, which is olive oil. It's about 1 tablespoon plus 1.5 teaspoons of olive oil, along with some kosher salt, which, if you remember, kosher salt has a larger grain size, less additives, so it's pretty good stuff. I'm going to toss that in there. You're going to take a spoon and you're going to go ahead and mix around those breadcrumbs, the oil, and the kosher salt until everything is pretty much well coated. Just kind of give it a good mixture there. After that, your breadcrumbs, you are going to go ahead and lay them out on your baking sheet. And use that same spoon that you just used to mix to go ahead and spread those breadcrumbs out in a single layer. Really make sure you spread them too, because you don't want any thick clumps on there. That's not going to ensure even baking of the crumbs to get them nice and crunchy. Okay, remember our oven is still preheating at around 300 degrees. And we're going to go ahead and throw those in for about 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, I'm going to take them out, stir them around, and then put them back. 5 minutes have passed. My breadcrumbs are now out of the oven, and as you can see, it's kind of taken on a lightly brown color. I'm going to go ahead and mix them around a little bit on my baking sheet with my wooden spoon here. Give it a good mix around. Make sure you maintain that single layer so that all those breadcrumbs are hitting the heat. Okay, and I'm going to put these breadcrumbs back into the oven. Your recipe says for another, 12-ish minutes, but definitely keep an eye on it because you do not want these to burn. So I'm going to go ahead and throw these back in the oven. Our breadcrumbs have finished their second run through in the oven. They are nice and lightly, golden brown, and it's time to add our last two flavors to our mixing bowl here. I'm going to go ahead and add some Parmesan cheese, some freshly grated Parmesan cheese, and some Italian seasoning and black pepper. These are both in this bag here. Okay, and with my wooden spoon again, I'm just going to go ahead and give that a nice stir. Mix it all around. Okay, and my final step of the day is to go ahead and bag these breadcrumbs into the bag that is labeled with your name and period number on it. And these will be refrigerated overnight to use during your onion ring lab tomorrow. Make sure you close them all the way. You want it nice and airtight. And it's ready to go in the fridge.